Hi YouTube, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Camera looks a little bit, oh maybe it's my mirror. Yeah, it's the mirror in the back. You kind of look cattywampus there for a little bit. Okay, so this is, I guess the magic of YouTube, okay? So this is going to be, I guess maybe my review of the new EDC pattern, okay? This project started off, well, the last video that I'll publish in the morning is dated May 7th, okay? So that's the date that either I shot the video or the day that I uploaded it to YouTube. And it's the final video in the how to make a new knife pattern start to finish, right? Where I take you from, you know, just an idea to the completed knife. And then the one that I'm going to publish tomorrow, it's the last one. It's number 25, which honestly I did not really intend for that series to be 25 videos long. But what it was I just, you know, an awful lot of YouTube videos, I mean, they're really flashy, you know, and they got amazing editing, you know, and some really sharp minds behind those videos. And they grab your attention and they hold it for 20-30 minutes, you know, for like the entire start to finish of a knife. Honestly, guys, I am not that entertaining, and I am not that good at editing. In fact, I really I mean, I'm doing good just to stitch these videos together, you know. So like a 30-minute video might be 3 or 4 segments long, you know, through the GoPro. And, you know, to get them all stitched together to put them onto one, you know, that's kind of stretching my editing abilities, right? And, you know, for me personally, especially when I was getting started making knives, man, those videos that were really cool and they jump forward, you know, and it wasn't in real time and everything. There was a whole bunch of stuff that I really wanted to see. And so this series is basically what I wanted to see. Now I'm giving it to you the way I wanted it, okay? And honestly, I mean, to make this knife pattern, you know, start to finish like we did, it'd be no different really what you saw on camera as if what you would see if you were standing here in the shop right next to me. So anyway, I mean, I know it was really long and everything, but, you know, honestly, that's real time the way it happened. So anyway, so today, what we're going to do is, like I said, that last video was dated May 7th, and it is July 10th now. What I have been doing with my videos is I had been releasing one a week, usually Saturday mornings. With all the stuff that's going on in the world right now, I mean, you know, the COVID thing and the rioting and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of people sitting at home, you know, with extra time on their hands, I decided that, and the series being so long, I decided to do, you know, one on Wednesdays and one on Saturdays. You know, just to, you know, give somebody something else to watch, you know, I mean, if they are stuck at home. Hopefully, we're at the end of that. At least I hope so. I hope folks are able to, you know, to soon be able to get back to work, you know, get caught up on their bills and their incomes and their jobs, and get to see their families and their friends, and, you know, do all that kind of stuff again, and to do it safely. But anyway, so this will be the last one on this particular knife, and then we'll go back to just doing one video on Saturday mornings. And man, I've already got, I don't know, 10 of them. There's some pretty exciting ones in there, and we can finally put this project to bed and get on to some new stuff. All right, so the two knives that made it through that whole series was this one, and then the one in Cocobolo. The one in Cocobolo I gave to a very good friend of mine. I guess we can bring up testers, okay, while we're here. I mean, I've had an awful lot of questions here lately. You know, I mean, if I would sell that test knife, or if I would give it to somebody or ship it to somebody, you know, and have them test it and give me feedback and everything, right? At least in my shop, I don't sell seconds, okay? A knife is either good enough to sell as, you know, a first, or it either goes in a garbage can, or it gets broken in testing. Very, very rarely will a second ever leave the shop in one piece, okay? And that is something that's reserved for pretty dang close friends, or for somebody who I know fairly well, and I know they're not going to sell that knife, you know, down the road, you know, to anybody else. And typically it's because I want to know a particular thing about that from that person whose opinion I value highly, you know, whatever it is about that knife. In this case right here, that was a second for two reasons. One of them was the quench was a little bit on the shallow side, and the other one was for that pin, you know, that got bent over during the peening process. Neither one of those affect that knife, you know, structurally. I mean, it'll be a good knife. I mean, the guy will probably get, well, he doesn't use and sharpen quite as hard as I do, so he'll probably get, I don't know, 20 years worth of service out of it. He is in law enforcement, and he dresses, I told him he dresses funny, and that's why he got the knife, but he dresses quite a bit differently than I do. I don't hardly leave the house without wearing a belt, okay? And everything, you know, I mean, most knives go on my belt, all right? I have never seen this fellow wear a belt at all. Usually he's wearing a fairly baggy t-shirt and like sweatpants or like gym shorts or something like that. So I was really interested to see how he was going to carry the thing and how he was going to like it, you know, in different modes of carry. And he said, well, we'll get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that a little bit later. Okay, so my thoughts on this particular knife, all right? Now, you got to remember, this is, I don't know, probably like the 7th or the 8th of this overall pattern that I've been carrying for, I would say, at least 5 or 6 years. You know, I don't ever date my knives, but it's been a while, right? Okay, so here are the, well, actually, I'll just show you the bench right quick, because I wasn't going to shoot this video quite yet, but I'm making sheaths for the other ones. These are 3 Neckers, and then these are 4 of the EDC patterns. I believe these 2 are spoken for, and I think I had a fella that was talking about getting one of these 2. So we'll find out, you know, 1 or 2 might be the only ones of these that make it to the website. As far as I remember, all 3 of these are going to go on the website. And then these are the ones that I've, you know, the ones I was telling you about. So this is the current one. That's the new EDC pattern. This right here is the last of the Necker pattern that I was carrying in 250-ish layer, no, 300-ish layer. I don't know, 1095 and 15N20. This was the first Damascus knife that I made and used and carried for a while. It's 110 layers, 1095 and 15N20. The first 440C knife that I ever made and carried for a while, you know, to test that steel before I, you know, offered it to everybody else. And this right here is the first of the Carter pattern Neckers that I ever made, that I carried, and 1095 and hickory. Okay, so all of these knives, you know, I carried this one right here for at least a year. I think I carried this one for a year or so. This one I carried for like a year, year and a half. This one I've been carrying for the last couple of years, like year and a half, 2 years. And this one I've been carrying since May 7th. All right, so this is a review of this pattern, or this particular knife pattern, in relation to you know, the last one. Okay, now granted, I mean, it's the same overall pattern. Okay, it is a little bit pointier, a little bit less belly, and it is a little bit larger, both in the blade and in the handle, both in length and in width. Okay, but they are very, very similar. And honestly, either one of these patterns, you know, once you started getting, or once you carried one for a couple of days or a week or so, and you started getting used to it, you know, either one would suffice for just about anything you would do on a typically, you know, a normal day-to-day, you know, that you would use a city knife for, or at least what I do. So the difference just being, you know, I mean, do you want to carry a dedicated neck knife, or a neck knife size of a knife, or a little bit larger of a knife? So we're going to go through a couple of the things that I do with a knife on a typical day-to-day basis. Then we're going to put both of these on my belt so you can kind of see the size difference and the draw height, you know, the height you have to get your elbow up to get the knife to clear and everything, all that kind of stuff. Okay, number one thing that I use a knife for every day is opening mail and packages. That's just the way it is, okay? I would say that between the two of these, you know, this one might have a slight advantage because it's got a little bit less belly. Now that can also vary, you know, from knife to knife, you know, just the variances in between the knife off the same pattern. But for opening mail and packages, you know, it's a little bit overkill, honestly. Dog food bags. You guys have seen my Labradors. If you haven't seen my Labradors, there they are, all three of them. Doc and Wyatt are both 80 pounds or 81 pounds last time we got them weighed. Claire, say hi to YouTube. Hi, Claire. Yeah. Oh, here comes Wyatt. Yep. And Doc, I think Doc just wants to chew on a bone is what he's doing. But yeah, he's got a great grand. Anyways, Claire's gained a little bit of weight since the boys, so I think the boys are 80 pounds and she's shorter, but she's probably right around that 80-pound mark, right? So that's what, 240 pounds worth of dog that I have running around here. So we go through dog food on a, you know, quite a bit. I'm opening up a 50-pound sack of dog food about every, I think once a week or so, something like that. Now on that little bit of extra blade length right there, we're talking a ½ an inch, that does make a difference, okay? When I'm, you know, you take the bag of dog food and you stab through it and then push out the side, that extra ½ inch does make a difference there. Something that I did the other day, I was taking down a pretty large cottonwood. It was, I don't know, that big around, something like that. I've got a 28-inch bar on my McCulloch 1010. I had to come in from one side and then get at least 1.5 feet on the other side to be able to open up my notch and then to make my back cut and you know, wedge it over. Well, when I was wedging that tree over, you gotta remember, big old honking, well, it was just the stem, about 30 foot of it. I climbed and got all the other stems down, and then, you know, I was just dropping the stem down. But, you know, I was wailing away on these wedges, and I hit the back of my, instead of hitting with the pole of the axe, I hit the back of the axe handle on one of the wedges, split the handle. So putting a new handle on, you know, they get them, they varnish them up. Well, I used that knife to scrape that varnish off. And, you know, I mean, it worked really, really well. You know, you have to go, it'll always work better going one way with the grain usually. And that knife just peeled that old varnish off, and then I was able to sand it down a little bit and then, you know, smooth it out and put Watco finishing oil on there, sealed it right up, and it's back in service already. Fishing and hunting. The only thing that I've done with this knife as far as fishing and hunting goes, because it's not hunting season. I did go to one of the local lakes, Sloan's Lake, I think 3 weeks ago. Took the kayak out, and I ended up catching 2 or 3 fish. One was a 12-inch rainbow. I think it was just 2, a 12-inch rainbow, which I threw it back because I caught a 21-inch rainbow about a half hour before that. And, you know, that was, I mean, a 21-inch rainbow is a pretty good sized trout. And that was more than enough for dinner that night. So I kept that one and then threw the other one back. So that knife did, you know, gut out that rainbow. And, you know, I mean, it worked just fine. I mean, you know, you make one opening cut, and then I go where the gills meet the jaw. So it'd be kind of like right under here or so, you know, make that cut. And then grab the gills and then pull them out, and then, or pull them out along with the guts, and then use the back of the point to scrape the bloodline off the inside of the spine. You know, worked really good. Handle felt secure. It didn't seem like it was too big or too small in that case. I mean, it was just about right. Hunting, like I said, I have not gone hunting for anything, so I haven't dressed anything out with it. I do believe that I like the knife well enough that it is not going to get, I'm not going to break it, or at least I'm not going to test it to destruction in the shop, which is saying something. Usually I don't get attached to a knife. Well, I guess I've carried it for a couple of months, and that usually is when I get attached to a knife, is after a couple of months. I like it well enough, I'm going to keep using it until I make another one and replace it. I do want to see the longevity of this stabilized cottonwood burl, see how well it holds up in day-to-day use. I'll probably grab another knife, put this on it, and then throw it in the dishwasher just to see what that does. So this knife will end up, you know, I'll probably go ahead and take this one deer hunting this year. We didn't draw our antelope tags, so this year we've just got 2 mule deer tags, and then a friend of mine told me I was going to get a pig from him, which, you know, I'll show up and slaughter it, and then bring it home, hang it in the cooler, and then butcher it a week or two later, make bacon and ham and all that kind of stuff out of it. This knife is probably not the knife that I'm going to go use to slaughter that pig, okay? Unless he just gets really small pigs. Because the way that you drop a pig is you go ahead and shoot it in the forehead, right? They say that stuns it. You know, I cut the last one open. That bullet went, I mean, even a 22 long rifle bullet went clean through the skull. So, I mean, it killed it. Well, then you take your knife and you go in and you push it in kind of at the base of the neck, and then bring it up, okay? At least that's what I've seen the most common way to do it in the butchery books and the YouTube videos I've watched, and it worked really well on the last couple that I did. And for a knife, doing that on a pig that's sometimes moving around a little bit, I want a knife with a full guard and a little bit longer blade length. That way, in case you go in and you hit bone sooner than what you think, your hand isn't going to run up onto the blade. That guard stops it. All right. So this will end up doing at least my deer this year, probably some cottontails, maybe a turkey. And I bet you it's going to do amazing. Now, one thing there, I did always notice that this pattern, for me, it topped out on mule deer does, okay, or maybe a young, like a 4-corn mule deer buck. Anything over that, and I mean, let's face it, I was, I always got the animal dressed out and everything, but once you started getting into a big mule deer, that pattern to me was a little on the small side. This one right here, I would do an elk with that. I would. I've dressed out elk with a little bit less than that, but yeah, that would, I could get by with that on an elk size animal pretty well. Cutting ads out of newspapers. Okay, I don't know if you guys do this or not, but you got a newspaper or like the local Traders or Thrifty Nickel, something like that, and there's an ad in there. You want to cut it out and save it, call them up later or whatever. Is cutting that ad out. And for me, this is a little on the large side for that. Sharpening pencils works amazing for sharpening pencils. Cutting rose stems. Okay, so you guys, well, I don't know if you know or not, but But I've got an awesome wife, right? I mean, she's put up with me for 19 years is what we've been married as of last month. So 19 years. We got 2 amazing kids, and she's a big part of their amazingness. And so, you know, I mean, I give her flowers on a pretty regular basis. Not so much because I screw up, you know, which I would think that by now I would kind of know the whole rules of the, you know, marriage type deal. But, you know, just to let her know that she's appreciated, you know, and that I care for her. And, well, you know, because, well, that's just what I do, you know. So she usually gets roses about, or some sort of flowers at least once a month. And typically I run down to Safeway, grab a thing, you know, a handful of flowers, whatever they're called, and bring them back. Now, here's a flower tip for you in a knife maker's video, right? That's kind of amazing. But let's say you get a dozen roses, right? Well, they usually come with that little packet of rose food, all right? And then you've got a vase from the last time you gave her flowers, so now you don't have to buy the vase again, just store it up underneath the kitchen sink. So now you take that whole bunch of flowers, and then you kind of, you know, stick it next to the vase on the counter, and then kind of judge where you want the, you know, where you want the flowers to come up at, and how much you need to, of the stem you need to cut off. Now, once you got that figured out, run some water in the kitchen sink. Okay, you can either plug up the kitchen sink and, you know, fill the kitchen sink up with water, or you can hold the flower stems underneath the stream of running water from the faucet, and then you take your knife and you cut through those stems. But you cut through the stems in such a manner that as soon as the knife passes through, they've got water on them. Okay, the idea being kind of like somebody punches you in the gut, you know, and the first thing you grab is a breath of air. Well, you slice those flower stems off, and the first thing they grab is a drink of water. Then you put that, we'll have your, you know, your flower food in the water in the vase already ready. So you cut them, let them grab that drink of water, and then shove them into the vase. And typically, I mean, there's no way to really tell, but it seems like anytime I treat flowers like that, they last another week longer than they would have if I hadn't. Okay? So, for that, this knife works beautifully, because those woody stems on those roses, you know, this has got a much, it's got a little bit longer handle, and it's a little bit wider too, because we don't have any weight restrictions for a neck knife, right? So it's nice, there's a little bit more for me to grab a hold of to make a cut like that, because you're cutting through, you know, that much diameter of little bitty rose stems, you know, which would be like, it'd almost be like, you know, grabbing a handful of pencils and making a nice clean cut through that handful of pencils all at one go. So for that, I do like the little bit longer blade length. Working in the garden, honestly, the garden at the new place, we haven't harvested anything yet, so I can't really tell you there. I do know that trimming the odd tree branch or something goes quite a bit nicer with that bigger, you know, wider handle, you know, to give you a little bit more cushion on the grip. And that's about it. Okay. Well, we can go through the last thing, and that's going to be what that friend of mine was telling me. Okay, the one that got the other tester out of Cocobolo. I told you guys he's in law enforcement, right? You guys know that I am not in law enforcement, okay? So anytime somebody gives you their opinion on a knife, or a tool, or anything for that matter, it always helps to know where they're coming from, all right? So where I'm coming from is as a knife maker, as a handyman, and as an outdoorsman, okay? So I would think that I would be qualified to give you advice on heat treatment of the steels that I work on, you know, how to sharpen the edge, you know, with whatever grip for the tasks that I like to use in the shop. And then also, you know, if I tell you, hey, you know, I particularly like this grit of edge finish when I'm working up mule deer, or you know, when I'm dressing out a mule deer, and then I like this kind of edge on my boning knife, you know, when I'm butchering that deer, or handymanning. If I tell you, hey, throw a rough edge on whatever it is that you're going to work with, because all you're doing is cutting drywall sheets and you don't need a polished edge to do that. You know, those are things that I know about, right? Okay, well, so this guy, I give him this knife. He carries it for a little bit. A week or two later, I say, hey, how are you liking it? Now, he also bought one of the neck knives. And he says, Joe, you nailed it. It's perfect. I wouldn't change a thing. Which means that either I truly did nail it, or he's too kind to say anything that he would change, or the question caught him off guard and he didn't have enough time to think about it. But when I asked him what he liked about it over the neck size version, he says, man, this just feels like there's a whole lot more to hold on to in case I get into a fight with it. And I'm thinking, you know, that is something that never even once crossed my mind when I was making this. This knife right here, I think I've slaughtered 4 sheep with this and finished off, or at least cut the throat and then started working up, I don't know, a half a dozen antelope. You know, I mean, they work really good for that, but as far as like fighting another human being, I'm not in that line of work, you know. So when he says, hey, you know, this works good, or would work great, you know, for this particular move and that particular move, I thought, well, okay, cool. I'm glad you think it's going to work out well for you, and I hope to goodness that you never have to test it. He said that extra ½ inch of blade length, the width, and the more substantial handle for him were just about perfect. He said he could go a little bit larger on the pattern also. Method of carry. This is an awful lot of talking. He tucks it in his waistband. You know, I mean, I gave him the knife with the sheath, you know, with the rivets in it that you can run the neck cord through, or, you know, to make a belt loop, or this thing. And honestly, he takes the thing and tucks it into his waistband, and that holds it just fine. Which, again, I would not have thought of such a simple method of carry. But he says he likes it. So sometimes when he goes to pull it, the sheath comes with it. So I've been kind of thinking about sort of a clamp, or maybe a hook that goes onto the end of the sheath, like with a Chicago screw or something. But I haven't come up with anything yet. So now this part right here is going to be kind of the ugly part. This is where you get to see... I don't have the mirror with me. Okay, I hope you're going to be able to see this. You ought to be. This is the ugly part, where you get to see my belt, and which means that you're going to see a little bit of my belly. It is extremely light colored and kind of hairy and a little bit on the chubby side. But it's for a good cause, right? Okay, so, you guys have seen how this works. Or this one right here, it hadn't been on my belt in quite a while. Now it's kind of a tight fit. It kind of makes me wonder if I adjusted this. Or this is a fairly new belt too. Maybe I swapped belts before. Okay, so we got them both at the same height there. Now let's go ahead and thread them through. Okay, maybe that's good. That way you don't have to see the belly for at least a moment. That's how I like to wear them, okay, to where the knife is behind this belt loop, okay? That way it can't ever come up over in this area right here. Because if it's in this area right here and I go to bend over and somehow end up pushing that blade through that sheath, that is going to be a really bad day, right? Okay, so it always stays behind that belt loop so it can't ever get in front of me. They can float to the back, but not ever in front. And typically, well, I've never carried two of them like this at the same time, okay? But this is just to kind of show you the differences. Okay, now, I have noticed that the bigger one, I have to draw, it seems like I have to draw it quite a bit higher to get it to clear. Yeah. This one right here, it feels like I can keep my elbow lower. Kind of hoping you get, let's see, how much are you going to see that? Tilt you up about like there. Maybe you can see my elbow at the same time. Okay, so this one, the shorter one, even without, doing the hip thing, pop out and it's ready to go. The longer one, it does seem like I have to lift my elbow higher to get it out. Okay? Now, or to put it back in. A lot of that can kind of be mitigated by doing the little hip thing. You didn't think this was going to be a dancing video either, did you? Where you throw your hip in, that lowers this one, and you pop that one out. But then again, you got to remember, I've been carrying this particular size right here for quite a while, and this one, even though it's only a ½ inch longer, that does make quite a bit of a difference. Now, the really nice thing about these, now, you'd have to check your local laws and everything. Here, I'm not aware of any, I don't think we have any real knife laws in Cheyenne. I mean, as far as I know, you could probably strap on a Bowie knife and walk downtown with it, and besides getting some kind of odd looks, I don't think anybody would really care. Okay, but sometimes non-knife people kind of get freaked out by seeing a fixed blade knife. I think pretty much everybody is used to the pocket clip in the corner of the pocket look. But, when you start carrying a belt knife, seems like that makes some folks uncomfortable. Which, there is the argument that, you don't really care what they think. But, I tend to like to try to get along with my fellow man and woman if I can. And these knives are very, you just don't see them. I mean, they disappear. When the wind blows or you go to stretch in a certain direction, you might see a little bit of a print, but they really disappear. One thing I have noticed a little bit is that, well, no, it wouldn't, because they're at the same height. It kind of seems to me like this particular knife right here, when I would carry it, my shirt would kind of get caught up underneath it, a little bit more often than this would. That could also be that, oh my goodness, I can't get it in the right spot. That could also be that in the last, December of last year, I've got a really bad stomach, and so something called ulcerative colitis, and so the last medicine that I was on wasn't really working all that well. And so they were trying to get me on this new medication, and getting it pushed through insurance and everything was, well, you guys know how that goes. Didn't really work out, or it worked out in the end, but it took a long time. So they put me on a pretty high dose of prednisone from December until March, April, something like that. And then they finally got me on the other medication, and then I started having to taper off of that prednisone. And boy, let me tell you, that stuff, for what it's supposed to do, it works pretty dang amazing. But on the other hand, I'm sure you guys noticed in that last series, I kind of blew up like a balloon. I mean, my face got it swole up so much so fast that my eyes were kind of squinting at the end of it. Now during that time frame, I was moving and then, working on the shop. Once the shop got pretty much finished and I wasn't doing like 20,000 steps a day, bam, I packed on like 30 pounds in a month. And it sucked. So now I haven't really lost a whole lot of the weight, but I've been back to, to working outside, climbing trees, replaced a door in a place the other day, been kind of getting a little bit more active, cutting and splitting an awful lot of wood. And so I'm not really losing the weight, but it's kind of getting redistributed, and I feel quite a bit better. But now I'm also in larger clothes, so it could be that the clothes aren't, I went from an 1XL shirt to now 2XL shirts, and so maybe they hang a little bit lower so they're not getting caught up in the knife quite as much. So anyway, so I think that gives you a pretty good overview of the differences in the new pattern compared to the old pattern. All right. Now again, I love them both. I really do. I think I'll probably keep carrying the larger size for another 6 months or so to keep trying it out. Have you ever noticed? I don't know about you guys, but knife reviews or gun reviews or shovel reviews or whatever, you have an awful lot of guys that are folks on YouTube that pull something out of the box. They use it for 10 or 15 minutes and then they publish some review on it. Me, I don't really feel like I get to really know something until I've carried it for quite a while. On a knife, I can give you initial reviews after a week or 2 or 3, but I'd be much more comfortable after week 10 or more, And this one, like I said, this is just a continuation of another design, so it's a little bit easier, but there are some big differences. Even though the blade's only a 1/2 inch longer and the butt's only a 1/2 inch longer, and the overall blade is probably, or the handle is probably a 1/4 of an inch maybe, or maybe 3/16 of an inch wider. And then, this portion is maybe an 1/8 of an inch thicker. That's it. But little differences like that can really add up. So, so I'm pretty pleased about the way the whole pattern has turned out. I'm also pretty pleased that I did take the time and make that whole 25, well, I guess now it'll be 26-part series, on making that knife. I have gotten some good feedback. Some guys are like, hey man, I was really after that kind of detail too, and I'm really glad that you took the time to do all that, which, hey, if it shortens the next guy's curve and he gets to, his next level of knife making and then can take the craft farther, that's what we're after, right? So I think that's about it. I'm going to go ahead and finish setting up these sheaths. I'll probably end up finishing them all out tomorrow because they take a little bit. You get one done, it's 7 minutes in the toaster, 14 minutes in the press, throw another one in. It probably take me half a day to get all these pressed and everything. So it'll probably wait until tomorrow. But I did want to throw this last video out on that whole series. That way, you kind of know where it's at. So, when to get them. Like I said, I got these 4. 2 of them are spoken for already. One of the other 2 might be spoken for. I like the pattern enough that this is going to be a standard offering. Now, a standard or custom, either way. So if you want one with a particular handle or color of Kydex or particular grind or anything like that, you can go to my website, caltoncutlery.com, and there's the contact us page on there, and then you fill that out, and then it sends me an email, and then I'll get back to you, and then we can go ahead and get you a custom order started. I will try to keep these on hand along with the neckers. Right now it's kind of an odd time, you know, with the move and everything, and now getting into summer and kind of getting the whole place ready to go. I'm almost caught up on my fixed blade orders. I think I've got like 20 of them left to go, and they're all fairly recent. My folder order list is unruly. I mean, I think there's like 30 freaking pocket knives in there, and I am painfully slow at pocket knives. I mean, they come out okay. You guys have seen these, you know, I mean, they come out all right. They're good knives and everything. They're not perfect, but you know, nothing ever is. But I need to really get to work on the folder list, and so that's pretty much, as soon as this batch right here is done, I'm diving, well, I've got some shop projects, and then I'm diving into the folders, and hopefully within a month or so I can kind of get those caught up a little bit, and then maybe I'll have time to do a couple of runs of the fixed blades. But if you need something, you know, send me an email through the website, and we'll get it figured out. So if you've made it this far through the whole series, man, you deserve like gold star, medal, whatever, because this has been a lot of time listening to me jabber. But hopefully you enjoyed it while you were listening to it. So again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery, and visit me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed the series. Hope you enjoyed the review. Maybe you learned some new tips and tricks, or maybe a different way of thinking about your everyday carry knife. Or maybe just, you know, whatever. Okay, and we will see you next time.